Watch the TV coverage of the PGA Tour for any length of time and you'd be forgiven for thinking that the top pros hardly ever miss a putt. Player after player seems to be rolling the ball in from any distance you care to think of, and certainly rarely if ever appears to miss the short putts which cause us regular amateurs countless sleepless nights. But is that truly the case? In this video we take a detailed look at the analysis of the pioneer of the strokes gained metrics adopted by the PGA Tour and highlight how TV coverage and traditional putting stats distort the reality when it comes to looking at the number of putts that the pros actually make and don't show that even by comparison to the best players in the world, amateurs are actually not that bad at putting themselves. The best pros in the world playing on the PGA Tour are great putters. There is no question about it. But if you watch too much golf on the television, you may think that they almost never miss a short putt and are regularly rolling in long putts from all over the green. And as a result, you could find yourself expecting to hole most of the 15-foot putts you face in your regular rounds, and for certain, all of your putts from 10 feet and under, because that is what the pros seem to be doing every week. A closer analysis of the stats of the percentage of putts the pros make from 2 feet all the way to 90 feet, shown in this table, however, will show that they do not hold quite as many as you think they do. This data, taken from the official PGA Tour stats and the book Every Shot Counts, written by the pioneer of the strokes gained metrics, first adopted by the PGA Tour in 2011, Columbia Business School professor Mark Brody, highlights clearly the pros do not one putt as often as TV coverage may suggest. And if you look at a standard 72-hole PGA tournament as a whole, you'll find that on average pros make only 4.4 putts from over 10 feet and 1.2 putts from over 20 feet per event. So despite what impression the TV highlights give you, that means the best players in the world are only in reality making one putt from over 10 feet around and only one putt from 20 feet across the 72 holes of a complete tournament. So the next time you start giving yourself a hard time for missing that third or fourth 10 to 15 foot putt, just remember that the pros would likely have missed them too more often than not. While all the data shows that the pros do not make as many putts as you may think, they are clearly fantastic putters and the best putters in the world. However, traditional golf stats have often proved misleading in explaining why the pros are so much better than regular amateur players. The old adage of you drive for show but putt for dough has been drummed into generations of amateur golfers and allowed the impression to build that it is the short game, chipping and putting, which explains the difference in capability between players. The reality, however, exposed by Professor Brody and others, is that it is the long game that is more important, and that simple fact is almost explained by itself when you look at how many putts the pros average compared to amateurs. On average, PGA Tour pros take 28.92 putts per round according to the official ShotLink data. By comparison, typical 90 scoring golfers average 33.4 putts per round. But this overstates the skill difference according to Professor Mark Brody, the stroke gained pioneer, because amateur putts typically start further from the hole than the pros. And when you think also that the pros are playing in the best putting surfaces in the world, it again serves to highlight that putting is not the key thing that explains the mountainous gap in ability between pros and amateur golfers. After all, looking at the average putting stats per round shows it only explains less than 5 strokes of difference between a pro's average score and an average 90 scoring golfer, and I can't imagine many regular amateurs accepting close to only 5 strokes for a match play game against a PGA Tour pro. In his book Every Shot Counts, Professor Brody again details the comparative percentages of how many putts the average 90 golfer makes to let us clearly see amateurs are actually not that bad when it comes to putting, even when compared to the pros. When it comes to explaining the difference between the putting of the best putters in the world and PGA Tour and that of us regular golfers, it is best not to focus on the number of putts the pros make, but rather on the number of putting mistakes they do not make. And when we are talking about putting mistakes, we are focusing exclusively on the dreaded 3-putt. Whether you're a professional golfer or a weekend hacker, 3 putts are scorecard killers. And it is when we come to counting how often pros 3-putt compared to amateurs that we see where the real difference lies. and the key difference when it comes to comparing the putting of the pros to the average 90 scoring golfer is almost lost when you look at the basic data. For example, if you take a look at the average number of putts per hole comparison between a PGA Tour player and an average 90 scoring golfer, in this graph, there does not appear to be a lot in it from all distances. That is true, but the crucial thing to look at is when those lines start going over the vital regulation 2 putts per hole mark on average. For the 90 scoring amateur, the dreaded 3 putts start to happen more often to drive that average up over the regulation at just over 16 feet from the hole, while for the PGA Tour pros, the average 2-putt range is 35 feet. Given the PGA Tour pros don't start ending up further than 35 feet from the hole on average until their approach shots are measuring over 200 yards, that just shows how often they will manage to avoid those highly damaging 3 putts to their scorecards. So rather than focusing on the question of how many putts the pros make, it is better for all recreational golfers to focus on the stat of how often the pros 3-putt, as it is by trying to match them in that statistic that amateurs will most quickly make a difference in their scores. Because even for the pros, 3-putt avoidance is key compared to 1-putt success. Thanks for watching. Please like the video if you enjoyed it and enjoy your golf.